Hey, I'm Jared Frazier from Hang Around Records, and today I wanted to talk about some of the records that influenced my journey through music. Like, these are the records that most opened my mind up to new cultures and new ways of listening to music, starting with like the first music I ever listened to onward through all the different changes in my life and what the records were that most signified those changes and helped me along my way. So it's a pretty big topic, but it's important to me, and it's something that's kind of given me a philosophy to live by because music is the driving force in my life, and it's at least the driving force that works out the best because I've had other driving forces at times in my life, but I always come back to music and things end up working well when I do that. So, first record I got to show you is one you've probably all seen, Lynyrd Skynyrd, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. This I got when I was about 6 years old on cassette tape, and I wore that tape out, and I just fell in love with the music, and it exposed me to new emotions. I listened to Tuesday's Gone, and I realized there was just so much more in the world that I had not experienced yet. It was like this existential sort of feeling that is really hard to put into words, but at the time it just made me really want to listen to more music and find more things that could expose me to this world that I was just entering into, and I am really grateful for this record in doing that. And after that, my sister was the one who brought this album to my attention. That is the Beatles, the White Album. And this made me completely re-examine what music even was and what it could be. Like with Revolution Number 9, it's just, it's just sounds, and it's different ways of playing with recording equipment, and that was just amazing to me. It blew my mind. But then there's all this other just great music on here, like While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Just made me feel so strong and so like emotionally connected to these people that I had never met, who lived in a country I'd never been to, who lived in a culture I didn't know anything about, and it just drove me to want to know more. And it's a really important record to me to this day, and I thank my sister for showing me this record. After that, this is one I already talked about in my last video, Green Day Dookie, and this, as I said, then is the first music I ever listened to that was 100% my own music. And I found this record at a time when my parents were going through a divorce, and it really helped me to find my own identity. And at a time when I was realizing, like, I was about 8 years old, and I was realizing I was different from people in my schools, different from a lot of the culture around me, and it gave me this feeling of like, that's okay, that's a good thing. Like, I could be happy with that and glad I was that way, and not feel so down on myself for being different. And just this music really spoke to that part of me, and I love it still. And that record led me to Rancid and Out Come the Wolves, which came out the same year as Dookie, but this one was completely embedded in the punk subculture, which I knew nothing about. Like, when I first got this, like the Green Day record, I thought that was just, its own thing. Like, there was no other music like that to my knowledge. And then when I found Rancid, there was like all this, all these different, what do I say? Like, there were all these different allusions to the punk subculture and Mohawks and like all this stuff, which to me at the time it was so exciting to think that there could be a culture underneath the regular culture that I had seen that had been going on for a long time, and that had this, like, was saying exactly what I wanted to hear. And again, it just forced this identity in me to come to the surface. And like, really helped me to define who I was at 8 or 9 years old. But still, like, that was an important time in my life, and because of what was going on with my parents and what was going on with me, going back and forth between different cities, seeing them, and just trying to like get used to my school and the people around me, and really finding out who I was. So yeah, Rancid was one that definitely helped shape who I was. And from Rancid, I found Minor Threat. And Minor Threat, this one, Out of Step, I chose because it was the first one I listened to, and it just totally blew me away that this was from the 80s. And then I learned a little bit more about Minor Threat and realized that they put this out themselves on their own record label, and like they put together all their own tours, and they just did it themselves. And this was back in the 80s, like at a time when like pop music was what was popular. Like this stuff was happening in the underground, and that was just just very much like inspired me to want to just do whatever it was that was going on in my mind that I wanted to do, and just go do it. And like, who cares if there's any kind of validation from people around you, or like superiors, like entities, as far as like the like the major record labels and things like that. Like, screw it. If you want to do it, you can do it, and you don't need somebody else to tell you that it's good or that it's all right, because it's really good. After that, I found Discharge, and this is the album Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing. And this is the album that this and The Exploited and a few other bands exposed me to the UK punk subculture. And at this time in my life, this was like the main thing I was listening to, is punk rock now, and like just digging in and finding as deep into that subculture as I could, because I had decided, this is who I am. Like, this is what I want to be. Like, these people are saying what I feel, and they're doing what I do, and like, I want to be a part of this. And this album has so much good guitar in it, and it really made me want to learn guitar, and it's what brought me originally to guitar. I mean, like this and some other records too, but Discharge especially just has such great guitar in it. And I just gotta say, like, the UK punk at that time in my life was my soundtrack, and I loved it. I still do. And then I found A Global Threat, Here We Are. This album's out of Boston, and this was recent. When I first listened to it, it came out like, it was like 2002. It came out like a year before that, and so obviously this is an important record in my life because I got it tattooed on me. This was the record that made me want to play music myself and want to start a punk band, and want to like be in that sort of lifestyle. And like, that was a huge change in my life. Like, I had no idea that I could actually be in one of these bands, but Global Threat, just the way they wrote their lyrics and the way that they made their songs concise and so gut-wrenching, and just so like just saying what they wanted to say and saying it well, and really like cutting to the core of like no pretense at all in this band. It's like, I want to do that, I want to tell people how I feel, and just get together with other people who feel the same way and feel that energy. And I did. I started my own band with my friends. They actually started it and asked me to join, and ended up touring the whole country a few times, and like playing in all kinds of different places and meeting. This album and a few others, there's The Unseen and The Casualties also at that time, they changed my life. Like, that, I probably wouldn't have gone in that direction if I hadn't heard these records, so I'm very grateful for that. And Against Me, As the Eternal Cowboy. All Against Me is great. I love them so much, and I have so much respect for them. But this one was one that I found around that same time that I found the Global Threat record. It was a little later, but there was just so much love and so much Yeah, the songwriting was just so personal, and it's so perceptive, and these were just such great songs to like learn on guitar and play with all your friends, or just put the record on and like have a communal experience, and just so much love in this band. And I am eternally grateful again to this band for being the band that they are and were at this time too, and just it's hard to put it into words, but I love them. If you've never heard Against Me, you have to go do that. Exploding Hearts, Guitar Romantic. This is an album that I really feel like if certain things hadn't happened with this band, everyone would know what this album is, because I feel like this band could have changed the direction of modern music in the early 2000s to be in line with what they were doing, because they're just that good. What happened was tragic. All but one of the band members died in a van crash on their way back from the Parkside in San Francisco to Portland, and yeah, it's just so sad. I think the oldest member was 26 at the time, but this album like brought me back to those pop hooks that I loved first in hearing that Green Day album, and brought me back to that sort of music, and remembering how much I loved just poppy punk rock and poppy power pop. Like, I love just a good hook in music, and made me appreciative of that again. Like, I was listening to a lot of really hard, fast music before this, and it just opened up my mind again to other things, which is always good. And from that, I found Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, and this album is just pure, raw, like, rock and roll energy. Like, the most, for better or for worse, the most rock and roll band that ever existed. Like, they lived it, and they weren't a band for very long because of how hard they lived it, but they made this album, and it is a testament to what rock and roll can be in its purest form. And I really recommend, if you haven't heard this, to go out and get it. Like, no matter what music you like, you have to appreciate it for just being as pure as it is. And from that, I went on to get the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street, which is my favorite Rolling Stones album to this day, but at the time I got it, I was not listening to a lot of popular music, and I had written the Stones off years ago because I was like a punk rocker and I only listened to indie music. But then when I listened to this, there was no way around it. It's just too good, and it became my favorite album for a long time. And it came to me at a time that I really needed it, because I was going down a bad path with drinking, and I was losing my love of music because that was taken over. And I think just a big part of what made me want to come back was the love I felt for music at one time, and this album like was able to bring that back to me, even through the cloud of what I was feeling from drinking all the time. And I'm very, very grateful for this album. This was actually my dad's copy that he got back when it first came out, and he handed it down to me, and I'm so glad to have this record. And so thank you, Dad. And this is Muddy Waters Electric Mud, which is what brought me into loving blues again. Like, I loved it as a kid when my dad would play it for me, but I had not really listened to any blues in a long time. But this one was easier to get into because it was electric, and it was like a little louder than the average blues, but it brought me back to like just a simpler time, I guess, and just raw emotion in there. And I always respect things that are from the heart, and there's no denying that this is from the heart and from like just a place of pure love of music. And that brought me back into playing guitar and wanting to learn more than just power chords, and wanting to learn like any album I could in the blues genre. And I needed something to devote my time to once I had gotten sober, and that was something that I put a lot of time into was playing guitar. I was living in a halfway house at the time, and it was just, there were a lot of people around me that needed music, so I played a lot of guitar at that time, and so I'm really grateful for that too. Graham Parsons, Grievous Angel. This is one of the albums that really brought me back into listening to brand new genres. This is a country album, and for the longest time I had just written off country as something I didn't like. I didn't know that there was country I loved, and this was one of the gateways to that for me, because I listened to it because the connection between Graham Parsons and the Stones, like I knew he had helped write Wild Horses with Keith Richards, and they were friends and stuff, and so I started listening to Graham Parsons, and I just loved it, and that led me into wanting to know more country music. And then I found Townes Van Zandt. This is a live album, live at the Old Quarter House, Houston, Texas. This is the Fat Possum reissue of it, but it's a really good reissue, and it has just some of the best lyrics I've ever heard in my life. It's depressing, but then hopeful at the same time. It's like this really amazing sense of just worldliness that he has in his lyrics. I mean, I don't know if he was ever able to live by those words or really feel them throughout the rest of his life, but when he put pen to paper and wrote lyrics, it was just one of the most beautiful things that ever could have been done. And I am always, when I am feeling down, I can always go back to Townes Van Zandt and just feel happy about the fact that that language can be so moving and so powerful when put to music. Wu-Tang Clan, Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers. This album is what exposed me to hip-hop that I love, and I didn't know, I heard a lot of popular hip-hop growing up, but when I listened to this album, it just changed me dramatically. It's just I love hip-hop, the beats and the lyrics that are just so heartfelt and so creative, and it's just beyond words. Again, it's just an amazing album, and hip-hop in general is something I've been able to get really dive deep into now, and the more I listen to it, especially the New York hip-hop of the 90s and 2000s, I just love this stuff. And if you haven't heard Enter the Wu-Tang, you absolutely need to go out and listen to it, no matter what kind of music fan you are. If you think you don't like hip-hop or rap, just give it a chance. It's great. And Dr. John, In the Right Place. This album really exposed me to New Orleans culture, and I had visited New Orleans a couple times before listening to it, but when I then later moved from Portland, Oregon down to New Orleans, and I was working at Peaches Records in New Orleans, and the owner, Shirani, showed me a lot of the Dr. John stuff I love now, and it just really exemplifies the city as what their overall perception of the world is and their outlook on things, and it's just such a great outlook. It doesn't matter what your job is or who you are, it's all about how you celebrate life, and that is really in this music, and I'm glad it's been put to been able to be recorded and put into something I can just put on my record player and hear anytime and really feel that feeling of what New Orleans is all about. And I just love that city. So I know they're going through hard times now, so just pray for them and feel for them. Or praying isn't your thing, then just put on a record and dance a little bit. They'll all be happy. In the end, they're gonna get through it because they're just the most resilient people in the world. This is a record my grandma showed me before she died, Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. This is the album that first exposed me to jazz that I love, and really opened my mind to albums without lyrics, like without vocals. Just really listening to what the music is doing, and it has changed like the way I listen to all the music I listen to ever since. Like, I just listen to all of it a lot more because I was a singer in my bands. I've always played guitar and sang, and like listen to the way the lyrics and the way they're being sung. That's the first thing I listen to while listening to music. But like just getting all the feeling out of an album that is instrumental entirely and really understanding it, it transcends language, and it can just make you feel a way that nothing else really can. It's like when I say things are beyond words, I mean, this is a perfect example. Like, there are no words, so you know, you just gotta feel it, and music is all about that. That's why it's music. But Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, classic album. I don't think anyone can say it's bad. Like, it's just not. So check it out if you haven't heard it, especially. But even if you have, maybe go back to it and listen to it again. It's never a bad idea. And lastly, this is the album I found most recently that's really like helped me along my path. This is Art Blakey, Moanin' album. This is a re-release, 2012, Wax Time Records. Not the original, I wish, but it is so good. It's so raw, and it's all instrumental. It affirms the fact that if music is from the soul and from the heart and done with passion, it's gonna be great no matter what the genre is. And that's something I've had to come to terms with since I was like 11, 12, listening to nothing but punk rock. That fact that all music is valid, all music is great, all cultures are valid, everything has its place, and there is love in everyone. So I wouldn't know where to start with talking about all the different cultures out there and what their place is, because that's not, I mean, I don't feel like I'm the one to tell you that, but music will tell you that if you follow through it and just keep an open mind and a love for what you're doing. I just want to say thank you to all the people that gave me feedback on my last videos and commented, and just really made me feel good and really made me feel like I want to keep doing it. So thank you so much. That's all I got for you today. I hope you're all doing well out there. Hope you're doing what you feel is right. I know there's a lot of things going on in our country right now that are coming to a head, and it's hard, right, along with all the stuff that's going on with the pandemic, and we're all in hard times. So, just keep yourself safe and do what you feel is right, and listen to some good music while you're at it, because that's gonna help. It's gonna help tremendously. All right, thank you guys. Bye.